Welcome back to Podiatry Marketing. I'm Tyson Franklin, and with me, as usual, every week, my co-host, Big Jim Mack. How you doing today, Jim?
Tyson, I'm doing well. Just getting back from a kid's 3.5, 4 hour concert. I'm a little, I don't know. We'll see how I hang on to this episode, but it's been a long night.
Kids concerts. I do remember going to them, and some, like I mentioned to you off air, my daughter's dancing concerts used to absolutely love them because
Mhm.
I could, because it might be a 2 hour concert, but she would be involved in the concert for probably 80% of it. So you get to see her performing. But there were some other things that you had to attend where she'd be out there for like 90 seconds. You had to sit there for 2 hours. This shows the love you have for your child when you
Yeah,
do that sort of thing.
it's definitely a test. It's definitely a test. I think I passed tonight, but I definitely feel you there.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about the perfect review, patient review workflow. I think, we've talked about kind of generalities about, why some patient reviews are important, what it can do for your practice, but we're really going to get into specifics today and kind of jump into how to make it happen. I think there's a lot of different ways that people can do it. There's different workflows, there's automated versus, asking for a review. There's a lot of different ways of doing it, but I'm going to run through what I think is the best way for people to pursue those patient reviews because they're hugely important if you want local visibility in your area.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of confusion around reviews for people as well. So I think this is a great topic, a timely topic.
Well, I think it's super, super important. Number one, because when I talk to other kind of local SEO experts, and I spoke at a conference last week online with a lot of them, and what they really say is that reviews are kind of a huge signal for your Google business profile, for your local visibility, because it shows that people are interacting with Google, right?
Mm.
If you're just people are just looking around on Google, maybe clicking on some links, that's one thing. But when people are actually leaving reviews, and sometimes even if they leave photos, first they're talking about some business. I'm not sure you're going to get many of your patients to leave, pictures of their feet, on some permanent channel like Google reviews. But there's a huge signal when there's a well-written review, or if people do use photos in different businesses, that Google really, really likes that and is going to surface you more often when you have those written reviews. So that's why number one, why it's hugely important that you're kind of doing this. If you're a little on the fence, like, well, I'm not sure I want to do reviews. Is that really that important? But when you have recent reviews, if you have reviews from 6 months ago or a year ago, doesn't really matter. But the more recent your reviews are, the better you're going to rank in that map pack, and sometimes even in organic rankings.
Yeah, but my wife and I, we talk about this all the time. It doesn't matter what we're doing, whether it's a service, a product we're buying. If we're looking at it and we're investigating a bit deeper, one of the first things we look at is the reviews and also the recency of the reviews. But if there's a business that's got 2 reviews, another one that's got 200, it's sort of, you get steered very easily to the one that's got the most reviews. And especially if there was only a review last week, you go, okay, at least that's what's happening right now.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I think somewhere between 80 to 90% of people before they make a buying decision or looking for a dentist or looking for somewhere to eat, they're going to do some online research, right? So, they're going to read reviews, they're going to see, what's happening, they're going to compare is that, like you said, 5 star to 10 star, or is there a 100 star or 1,000 star business?
Mm.
So it's a real kind of a relativity thing. If you're in a small area where maybe the clinics only have 15 or 20 reviews, you can really stand out by being, double or triple that. So it's a real relative game you have. And if you're in a big urban area, maybe someone has 1,000 reviews, and how can you get to the point where you're competitive with them? So I think it's a really important component of it. And like you talked about, it's not just, obviously it's podiatry, but we do that same thing for other businesses. It just becomes a way of kind of showing trust in the businesses you're interested in, right? By people providing that review for you and kind of utilizing that digital word of mouth, they're kind of extending their trust into the community that you are reputable, you're the professional, you're the person to see.
I like what you said too about a lot of times people aren't going to take a photo of their feet while they're at the podiatry clinic.
Right.
But there could be times when you're using a piece of equipment, and if a patient actually says to you, wow, that's really interesting, I haven't seen that before, how does that work? And you're explaining it to them, you could quite easily say to the patient, hey, you can take a photo of that if you want and post it on social media. Have you done a review before? No. That'd be a perfect photo to go with a Google review.
No,
And I think
absolutely.
A
Absolutely.
lot of patients who like you, they actually want to help you. They'll do whatever they can.
Yeah, if you're providing great care, they're gonna sing your name from the rooftops. And like we talked about previously, when other people talk to you about you and the great care you provide, that's much more valuable than, where you went to residency or some crazy long bio that no one's gonna read on your website.
Well, we've had a few businesses, especially when we're in America, not as much in Australia. When we're in America at different restaurants and we've had a great meal, and they go, "Oh, how was your meal?" Go, "Oh, that was absolutely fantastic." And they always say to us, "Saw you taking some photos before the meal. If you're going to do a review, by all means, feel free to post those photos." Okay. So we do it while we're sitting there at the table waiting for dessert. We'll post the photos.
No,
So
that's
it's
huge.
sometimes just a little bit of encouragement is fantastic.
No, just yeah, giving them that option or opportunity to do that, it can go a long way.
Okay. So are there any like stats or anything about all this?
Yeah, like talked about, there's kind of like when people are making buying decisions, whether it be, looking for maybe where they're going to get their oil change or if they want to see a dentist, it's somewhere in the ballpark of 80 to 90% of people will look at online reviews before making that decision. So definitely something worth considering. Also, I'd say there's some common mistakes people will make
Yeah.
whenever they, when they're kind of getting this kind of workflow into, or not, if they don't have workflow, what are they missing out on? And I would say that when you wait too long to ask for a review, um, you're already out of mind with the patient, right? So, their people are busy. So if you're not asking, either at the time of service or, that same day, you're going to be losing out on not only the potential to get that review, but also a well-written review. Because if you ask days later or a week later, they're going to kind of forget those details. And you really want them to be kind of fresh out of the clinic and ready to, having had a great experience. And that's kind of that prime time to ask for the review. Also, you'll find that people are asking either inconsistently or, when they're doing it kind of in a one-off manual style, you're just kind of like not really sure when they're asking. Is it after the first patient visit? But I really recommend people are, looking more when someone has that wow experience or they're better from a surgery or some type of procedure you did or some type of modality. That's the right time to ask. And
Mm.
if you're just asking every once in a while when you feel like it, or you don't have a kind of a workflow in place, it's a recipe for disaster because you're going to miss out on so many good reviews that could potentially help really boost you up into that kind of trusted provider area in the Google review section.
Yeah. When I was asking before about the stats, I, I did recall seeing a business once. I think it was a restaurant or it was a cafe, and up and had a sign up there, and it said, "Here's a statistic: people that leave reviews get more sex." It was something along those lines. Like if you leave a review,
Right.
statistically proven, you get more sex when you get home. What do you got to lose? You may as well do a review.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work for podiatry clinics, but you never know. So,
Well, you can do a twist on it. You may not want to do it exactly like that, but you can do a twist on it. That do you know that people that leave reviews look sexier, walk taller, been proven that their feet uh, feel better after they leave a review. We don't know how it works. It just works.
there you go.
So people listen to this going, no. Okay. But anyway, if anyone decides to open up a side business, you could use that one.
No, for sure. I'll definitely take that down and consider that for me for podiatry growth. A good way to get some of my marketing service reviews
Well,
there
that's
on
what
Google.
and I'm telling everyone right now. If you're enjoying the podcast and you haven't left us a review yet, if you leave a review for this podcast, guaranteed you will get more sex when you get home.
That's quite the guarantee. So,
Is that a carrot or what?
all right. So,
Okay. Sorry
well,
to put you off.
no, it's all good. Like
Okay.
I've got some
Yeah.
crazy stuff going upstairs as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So the other mistake I see is that people are not knowing kind of, where they're needed most as far as the reviews. Like sometimes people kind of scattershot them around. There's Rate MDs, there's Vitals, there's a bunch of different places where you can leave reviews, but at least for right now, the best place to leave them is Google. Like the reason why we do that is because that's where most people are searching for these types of services, for your foot and ankle care. Maybe they might end up on Rate MDs or Vitals or something, but right now, your best bang for your buck is to be on Google. And there's also people failing to respond or engage with reviews afterwards, either positive or negative. It's crazy that you're not responding to any negatives, but I think it does make a lot of sense to respond to the positive ones, reiterate the positive comments they had about your clinic. Obviously not sharing any health information about why they were there, but it shows that you care. I think it's also something where you should do it in a way that's not just like an automated response, because if it's something shows up 2 minutes after they left a review, it's a bit of a like it doesn't feel as genuine. So you may not have to write them all, but if there's a way you can kind of batch them, at the end of the day or once every other day, it's okay to let it hang out for a day or two. That's not necessarily a bad thing for a positive review. If it's a negative review, you definitely want to get into it as soon as possible and either address it offline and see if that person's willing to change their review. If not, you just need to address it so it's just not kind of hanging out there, kind of collecting dust and making people think that you don't really care about your patients or the people you take care of in your clinic.
Yeah, and most people, if they've set it up properly, they will get an email from Google to say a review has been left. So there's your reminder. So just be aware in your clinic who is actually getting those emails, how have you got it set up, and where are those emails going? Because if it's going to a computer that you have nothing to do with, and the team member looking after that doesn't know they're supposed to be responding, then it could just be sitting there. So you've got to come up with some form of workflow to make sure that's happening. I know even with YouTube, when people leave a comment about one of the videos there, straight away I get an email and I'm onto it pretty much that same day.
Yeah, having someone responsible for either if you're doing it through automated means or either you're doing something like using that software like GatherUp to kind of do it, when the doctor asks after having seen a patient who's very happy with the result, you just need to have a feedback loop and a loop there to make sure that those either positive or negative reviews aren't just going to somewhere that no one's looking at for sure.
Okay, what's next?
So next is, okay, what is the kind of like, so I've been talking about a workflow, but what is that kind of workflow and kind of what is the way that you ask, how can you guide these reviews and then how can you amplify them? There's kind of a 3-stage workflow that can really help people, kind of figure out this way to ask for the reviews and kind of get those reviews you want to have in your clinic. So like I said, number one is ask. You got to find a way to build it into the visit. Where does it fit best kind of in that patient visit? Generally, it's going to be near the tail end of that in that clinic room encounter. I think a lot of doctors these days understand the importance of reviews and aren't shy to ask for them. But you can ask for them in a way that, gives the patient the opportunity to say no, but also letting them know that, if you've received great care here and you're very happy with the care you received, it'd be great if you could share it online, because then a lot of other people in the community can receive this care as well. So, you can ask, you as the provider can ask. Maybe you prefer having your medical assistant ask. Some at your front desk could kind of follow up with it. There's different types of systems to kind of get into the ask, but someone, either you, your medical assistant, or your front desk staff should be kind of the one asking for it. I think it is important to ask whether you're doing automated or non-automated, because patients then will kind of understand that there's kind of not an expectation, but it feels more human to ask for it, and they're probably more likely to respond with a good response, as opposed to kind of like a great clinic or 3 stars or 4 stars and something that's not really helpful to your practice.
Yeah, well, most of the reviews I've ever left, I'd say 50% of them I've been prompted by the person we've interacted with at the business, where they've actually said, oh, you've enjoyed this, or you had a good time. If you'd like to leave us a review, that'd be great, and we'll do that. Other times it's because I've taken photos, and when I'm looking at photos later, it's prompted me to actually do it. But I've said it numerous times. I think the more reviews you leave for people, the more reviews you get, because it's then top of mind. Then when you're with your patients, you're more inclined to mention it. My personal belief, the podiatrist should be asking for it.
Yeah, I think that's, you're going to get better reviews. You're going to get more reviews that way, I think, when the podiatrist asks for it. So yeah, I definitely think that's where it should start.
Okay, so what's after ask?
So after you ask, you're basically the term you can think about is guide. So we want to be guiding these people. We don't want to say, hey, go to Google and leave a review for us, right? Like I've seen that happen.
I like that part. Hey, you, oi, go to Google, leave that review.
Well, you're asking for a review, you need to give them kind of a path to walk down, right? So
yeah.
Obviously that's most likely going to go to Google, but are you, sending them an email? Are you sending them a text message? There's different software. Like I use GatherUp with the clinics that I work with, and I find that it's very helpful because all the front desk staff has to do is basically after they've, said yes to you, you can make a little mark in your either on your EMR, your electronic medical record, or maybe a piece of paper you can send to your front desk staff, and they'll kind of reiterate that, hey, Mrs. Smith, we're going to send you a review request. Would you prefer to get that via text message or via email? And then you can they can get it in whatever form that is most helpful, makes it easier for them to fill out the review, and then you can send it to them. But if you're just kind of leaving it, there's different ways as well. Some people like to use QR codes. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see those QR codes at the desk, which
Little
I'm not a big,
stands.
yeah, I'm not usually a big fan of the stands, or there's sometimes ones that actually they have like a chip in them where you can actually, it'll kind of pop up and give them an opportunity to make a review there. But generally I prefer people to be outside the clinic when making the reviews. If you're handing someone a tablet, hey, give me a review, or you're making them kind of stand around longer in the clinic filling out they're going to basically fill out like a really short text review, maybe just a star review, and that's not ideal. You want someone to have a little bit of time to put some thought into it and to write a couple paragraphs that are really going to help you stand out. So when you guide them, just be aware of what system you're using. If you're using QR codes there, if you're using QR codes on a business card, what are the kind of the ways that someone won't follow through? And I find that something like GatherUp is a little bit more bulletproof than just like, here's my card with the QR code, or there's the QR code there on the desk, or just like, hey, you said you leave a review, just go to Google. You're going to get only angry patients going to Google most likely, and get a lot of 1 stars that way. Because no one's really gonna do that, I think.
Well, I also think it's one of those things too. If you're asking people for reviews and you're not getting them, one, they need to talk to someone like you to go through the process and probably find out why they're not getting the reviews, or reach out to us. We go through the process with them. But I think if you're not getting reviews, sometimes you can think about, is the service that you're providing average? Are you only just meeting their expectations? And then going, well, I'll give you a review, but you just did your job.
I mean,
and if that happens a lot, then I think you've got to look and go, okay, what can we do to exceed everyone's expectations? Therefore, we'll get more reviews.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great feedback loop, right? If you're either not getting reviews or you're getting ones that are very lukewarm, maybe since you asked for them, they're going to feel a little bit like they're not going to slam you, but like it's a 4-star, or it's like kind of, it's a little wishy-washy.
Yeah, Jim was good.
Exactly. So I think it's important, like you said, if you take that as, like if you're getting a lull in reviews, like why has it been 2 weeks or 3 weeks since you got that last review? It could be a sign that maybe there's some things you need to work on in some of your processes. So definitely, I'm glad you brought that up.
Because I've had people say that to me, that, oh, we're not getting any reviews. I'm going, maybe you don't deserve them.
True.
I'm thinking, they go, oh, okay, maybe. So what's next?
So last in this kind of ask, guide, and then the last one is amplify. So, when you get these reviews, the nice thing about it is different software tools can sometimes change these 5-star well-written reviews to things that you can embed on your website. It's something you can make social media posts about. Basically, you can use, it can utilize it kind of on your local SEO. So in the US, at least with permission, you can utilize, since they've given you the review on this Google site, you're able to sometimes repurpose that into ways that will help build trust in these different digital platforms. So amplifying the great things that people are saying about you. I know it's not possible in all kind of corners of the world, but in the US, at least in North America, you can utilize those reviews to show people that you are trusted by others, and it's a great way to market your practice.
Yeah, well, I know in the UK they can use reviews and testimonials. Australia, not so much. Little bit tighter on how you use them. But I've seen people use the reviews in marketing in Australia, and no one's complained. So I don't know. Like I always say, you've only broken the rules if someone complains.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what comes next?
So next is like I talked about a little bit with ask, guide, and amplify, is like, so what kind of tools are you going to be using here, right? If you're just kind of asking like, hey, go leave me a review on Google, it's not going to happen. But sometimes people will start off with these QR codes. I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but there are different levels. So after the QR code, my next step would be utilizing something like GatherUp. We can get these reviews through either sending out a text message or an email. People can utilize sometimes these automated review requests. I just think you should have kind of a low expectation about the quality of reviews you're going to get if you get those. And sometimes you're going to send an automated review to someone that's not really happy with the service that you provided. So be aware of that. You're going to maybe have to be a little bit more on top of the reviews when they come in to make sure there is a 1 or 2 star that is responded to more quickly.
Yeah.
So I think it is important that, you're utilizing tools to make it easier because, whether it's the marketing agency you're working with or a consultant like myself or someone on your staff, you want to have something that's really user friendly, but you need to have a tool to make it happen. Like I said, there's different things you can do with QR codes and kind of leave them around the practice. But if you really want to take your review game up to the next level, make sure you're getting a lot of recent reviews, and that recency is super important to help you rank and to make sure you're, visually better than the other, or, visually with more reviews than other people in your local area. I definitely highly recommend some tooling to kind of to ask, to help ask for them, to guide the patient to lead them, and then amplify what you're doing there. And like I said, it's something that you can kind of you want to start off by getting those reviews for your clinic. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of send those to some of the providers in your practice, but first and foremost, you want to get those. Utilize a tool that's going to help you get the maximum amount of positive reviews for your clinic.
And I think that comes back to something you said earlier on too about who's actually asking for the review. I think if you personally are doing it, you're probably going to get more reviews about yourself, which is, I think, is great. If you got your receptionist or somebody else doing it, then you're probably going to get more reviews of the overall clinic, depending on the process that you're actually using.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with the clinic, but there's definitely can be kind of a umbrella effect, or kind of a, by kind of being associated with the clinic, that you're going to get more positive reviews with the individual provider Google Business Profile. So hugely important. Like I said, these reviews are kind of a flywheel for your kind of your practice growth. When you show kind of consistent reviews, it's going to build that online trust and really help kind of build your reputation. Because if you have 500 reviews and the next clinic in your area has 50, it's a clear signal to patients that are looking for foot and ankle care about who the best person to go to is. I think that sweet spot somewhere between 4.7 and 4.9. As long as you're in that area with a lot of reviews, I think you're going to be really successful. I really encourage people listening to podcasts to track your progress, right? How many reviews are you getting per week? What is the average rating? What is, if you kind of implemented a workflow, is it, are you kind of improving on it? Just making sure that you're aware of, what you're doing and the kind of the analytics and some of the data behind it, so you can make sure that you are growing your practice through all these online reviews.
Yeah, and what I really love about reviews, like compared these days compared to years ago before we had all the whole review process, when it used to be people go to Yellow Pages and whoever had the biggest ad won. So it was whoever had the most money to put the ad in there would win that battle in the Yellow Pages. What I like about reviews is an even playing ground for everybody. And it's up to each individual business to put the time and effort in to work through this whole process that you've been talking about to actually get the result they want. They want to just sit on the bum and do nothing. I'm not going to worry about reviews. The person that does worry about it and who's listening to this and actually taking notes and going back to the team and say, hey, we need to have a team meeting about this, or we need to contact Jim and get him to help us set up these workflows, they're going to do well. They're going to do better than the person who just thinks just spending money in other areas is going to actually win this race.
No, I mean, if you're being passive, you're just going to get left behind, to be honest. Like you said, you're going to get those, maybe you'll get occasional, get a 5-star, someone who's a really, raving fan, like we talked about in a previous podcast, that really wants you to succeed. But the majority of reviews you're going to get kind of passively are going to be the people that are angry with their copay, or angry with their deductible, or something that doesn't necessarily have to do with you. Like, it's not even the care you provided, something kind of in that experience that they had either with the front desk staff about, oh, they said I had to pay $50 for a copay. It's, so you're going to get those 1-star reviews there. But the other thing is, like you said, it's the person that's taking action and making it a priority that's going to, it's a wide open thing. You have a great opportunity to build that online reputation and trust in the great care you provide, but you have to take the first step. It's not just going to happen automatically. Even the best podiatrists out there, the best surgeon, the best clinicians, they have to ask for reviews in order for people to see you. And it's one of those things, it's digital, it's kind of online word of mouth that you have to help facilitate. And once you give them that platform, then they'll sing your praises. You'll get a lot of reviews. You'll get growth from it. You'll be happy. If you just kind of sit back and just hope they flood in, you're going to be sad. You're not going to be happy because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you don't want to be sad. So anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think this is a good spot to wrap up. Like I said, I encourage people to take action with this. Feel free to reach out to Tyson and myself about reviews. I think they're hugely important for clinics these days. Like I said, when it comes to Google rankings, review recency is huge these days. So don't sleep on reviews. You really need to have a workflow in place to rank high in your local area.
Yeah, and I think what I said before is taking notes from this episode, getting together with your team, going through what you learnt on this episode, and ask your team, have you left reviews anywhere else? Why did you leave your review? What type of review did you leave? And really create like a think tank on how you can actually implement this in your business and just make it better.
Absolutely.
Okay, Big Jim, I look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds great, Tyson.
Oh, it's your birthday next week too.
Oh,
Just so you know.
lucky me.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, Tyson.